Once upon a time, in the state of Monroe, lived an old hag known to the people as Morag Elizabeth Goule. Miss Goule if they were nasty. With her lived a man who put the gentle in gentleman, and he was affectionately known as Pappy. Having found love in their later years, the couple decided to marry, surrounded by friends, and a woman named Ethel, who witnessed their joyous union. They took a solemn vow to be with one another through every storm. However, their joy on their wedding day was interrupted by the surprise arrival of a letter that brought Morag shocking news. It revealed family truths that had been kept from her whole life. She had a twin sister. The next morning, Morag headed to the Honey Pot, a cozy bakery in a nearby town where her newfound twin sister had asked to meet. As she entered the cafe, Morag felt a swarm of butterflies in her stomach, and her thoughts swirled with anxiety. She wondered, what if she doesn't like me? What if we have nothing in common? Morag took a seat and tapped her foot nervously on the floor. Though it felt like an eternity, only 5 minutes had passed when the woman she believed to be her sister walked in. The woman wore a beautiful dress framed by an overdressed corset and carried a matching Louis Lemoyne handbag. She exuded grace, elegance, and decorum, but unfortunately had Morag's large, witch-like nose. The two greeted each other warmly and quickly launched into chatting about their pasts. Mara's upbringing was one of luxury, raised solely by her mother, Paige Goule. Morag sat with her eyes aglow, listening intently to every detail of her sister's fabulous and luxurious life. From expensive birthday parties to spending Christmas by the log fire in their grand Goule manor, Morag was impressed by every minute detail. "You received gifts at Christmas? Oh, that is nice!" exclaimed Morag, her face painted with delight. "So I'm sure you know I'm going to ask this, but I just wanted to know, could you tell me anything about how I ended up in the swamp alone?" Mara looked pained. "Indeed I could. Our mama, told me the tale growing up when I asked about Papa. The story begins with us traveling together by carriage through the swamp. The ground was uneven and we were traveling slowly, as you know. We reached a point where Papa had to get out and help the horses through the quagmire. It was hard going, but we got the horses moving again at pace. Papa was keen to get out of the swamp as fast as possible to make up for the time lost. That's when it happened. I remember the explosive bangs. They're one of my earliest memories. That and the world spinning upside down. Mama said that the gunshots spooked the horses and we spun off the road. The carriage tumbled over as the horses broke free. Everything happened so fast, and at some point in the fracas you had disappeared, hurled out the carriage door, but Mama couldn't be sure. Mama said it was bandits. They swarmed on us. We had to run. Mama took me and Papa covered our escape whilst defending us against the bandits. He told Mama he would find you, Morag. He promised. He told Mama to run on ahead. We never saw him or you again. We thought you both lost." They sat in silence for a moment whilst Morag took it all in. "Can you tell me more about our family? What about the other Goules?" "Of course, but maybe later. I just arrived and would love to learn about your life in Monroe," Mara said, finishing her tea. The sisters wandered around the town of Valentine, meeting some of Morag's acquaintances along the way. As they approached the end of their journey, they ran into an old friend of Morag's named Edith. Although Edith wasn't particularly remarkable, she was a kind-hearted person who always treated Morag well. "Hello, Morag. Are you still planning to pelt stones at the lawman later?" Edith chuckling heartily. "I don't know what you're talking about. I would never do such a thing. That's a strange thing to suggest, lady." Morag winced, covering her face with her hand. Edith turned away, looking somewhat puzzled by Morag's reaction. I noticed that the old lady is missing a chunk of hair at the back of her head. Thank God you don't know her, sister, said Mara, her large witch's nose wrinkled in disgust. Ha, yeah, right. Some people have no class around here. Morag trailed off, and an awkward silence lingered. Morag quickly brought her sister to her home to meet her husband. Their home was small, but it was a precious gift from their dear friend Rainier, the mayor of Valentine. Upon arrival, Morag rushed into her husband's embrace, her joy and excitement evident on her face. "Oh, Pappy, look, she's real! This is my sister," she exclaimed, glancing over at Mara, who appeared unimpressed. "That's wonderful, honey. I'm so—" Pappy began, but Morag quickly broke away from his embrace, sensing that something was amiss with her sister. Morag dusted herself off and said, "Mara, I'd like you to meet my husband. This is Pappy Ghoul, my Prince Charming." Mara took a dismissive glance at Pappy from head to toe and let out a slight sigh. "Oh, so this is him. How interesting." Morag giggled. "See, Pappy, she's got my sense of humor." Pappy, a little confused, extended his hand to shake Mara's and greeted her with a signature, "Why, hello there, young lady." Mara reaches out but recoiled at the sight of his dirty hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir." The initial cold introduction thawed that night, and Mara sat with them for hours listening to all the adventures they'd had together. From fighting over the order to running a school for misguided adults, Mara seemed to be genuinely interested in learning more about her sister. As the weeks passed, people started to notice Mara's influence on Morag grow. The sisters would begin to spend more and more time together. Morag sensed that while she grew closer to Mara, Pappy had yet to warm up to her sister. Pappy often didn't understand Mara's callous sense of humor like Morag did. Pappy would take silent offense at Mara's constant remarks, but Morag knew she wasn't being serious. One night, while Morag was lying in bed awake, she came up with an idea. She thought that maybe if Mara and Pappy spent some time alone together, they would get along better. The next day, Morag rushed out of the house to fetch Mara from the hotel Pappy put her up in. She asked her to wait at the house, promising to be back in just a minute. Whilst Pappy had welcomed her warmly when she arrived, minutes passed in uncomfortable silence as they waited for Morag's return. Out of the blue, Mara broke the silence and exclaimed, "Is this all you could do for her?" Her old wrinkled face twisted into a sinister smirk. Pappy was caught off guard by her comment and asked, "Excuse me, young lady, what do you mean?" "Well, if you must know, she could do better. Honestly, it's charity what she does hanging around you. The state of this house, at least her clothes match the run-down feeling of this so-called home. You clearly can't provide for her." Pappy's expression quickly turned sour, his fist clenched. "I want you to understand that we have worked hard to achieve what we have today. It seems like you have never worked a day in your life. It's not right to talk down to us like that. You have overstepped your boundaries." "You're not fit for the job," Mara said with a dismissive tut. "Soon enough, you'll see that I'm right." "Now you listen here," Pappy shouted before being cut off by Morag flying through the front door. "Sorry I took so long. I had to get a saddle for Krusty back at the stable." "So what did I miss?" Morag said while still attempting to catch her breath, missing the tension in the room. "Oh, nothing much, dear sister. Pappy was just telling me about how he was going to pay for us to have a lovely canoe ride down the river, ending with a pot of afternoon tea. Isn't that right, Pappy?" she said with a shit-eating grin across her face. Pappy took a moment before he nodded silently. Morag kissed him joyfully, grabbed her sister's hand, and ran out the door. From that point on, things started to change rapidly. Mara would continuously criticize Pappy for his lack of manners and poor hygiene. However, Morag was still not convinced that her sister was being serious and would often brush it off as a joke. By the end of the third month, Morag no longer spent any time with her friends, often just ignoring them to spend time with her sister. She even began to dress the same as her, including wearing a bright blue color instead of her well-known Widow of St. Denis red. Even Pappy began to be abandoned by Morag in these months. Mara sensed she could use this opportunity to drive the wedge further by always reprimanding him of just how awful he was in every way to her. By the fourth month, Morag decided it would be a great idea for the three of them to get a boat out to Guarma and have a little holiday away from the hustle and bustle of the city streets. The couple didn't really have much money left at this point, as Morag had stopped working and she'd also hung up her scamming. Pappy was making what he could by fishing, but he was paying not only for Morag, but Mara's fancy St. Denis hotel room as well. That and the constant shopping trips that ran them down to the last penny. On the night before they were due to head away to their little holiday trip to Guarma, Pappy managed to talk with Morag in bed. He attempted to explain to her that they don't have the money to keep up this lifestyle and that things would have to change when they returned. Morag, who was oblivious to their financial woes, said innocently, "I don't understand what you mean by things will have to change." Pappy forced a smile and replied, "It's just that I don't earn enough money to sustain our current lifestyle. Maybe if you went back to work, or if your sister could contribute something." "What do you mean? Mara said that we should be able to afford this. This is how things should be. Also, we need to bathe more, especially you," Morag retorted. "I believe that what your sister is telling you is not how things have to be. Maybe where she comes from that's the case, but it's not who we are," Pappy explained. Morag shook her head. "Where she comes from is where my family is. Pappy, we need to do the right thing. One day she'll tell us where they are, or even better, she'll take us there herself. She promised me, and she's my sister." Pappy paused, pondering his next few words. "Darling, I really am starting to question all of this. Perhaps I'm beginning to have doubts myself, Pappy. You need to change, to be a man if we're ever going to uncover the truth," spat Morag. Pappy let out a defeated sigh and turned over for the night. Morag's words stung deep. The couple exchanged muffled "I love yous" and drifted off to sleep. The next day, the couple and Mara set out for Guarma. Mara and Morag sat in the back of the carriage and giggled and talked together, whilst Pappy sat at the reins and guided the horses. After a long ride by carriage and boat, they arrived on the sunny island of Guarma, famed for its gloriously golden beaches and glistening blue skies and seas, not to mention its famous rum. They wasted no time settling in. They dug into the local cuisine and customs and spent a pretty penny on cocktails at the local beach bar. It may or may not have been run by pirates, but that just made the rum all the sweeter. After a few rounds, Morag went up to grab her fourth tankard of rum, leaving Pappy and Mara alone at the table. Mara's expression darkened the moment Morag's back turned. "You've not got long left, you know. Soon she'll see you for what you truly are," Mara hissed with that familiar shit-eating grin that Pappy had come to loathe. "What is your problem?" Pappy asked incredulously in a hushed tone. "You may not like how we do things out here, but this is our life, not yours." "We'll see, Solomon. We shall see." Mara's wicked grin returned as Morag stumbled back to their table. Countless drinks later, the couple and Mara traveled drunkenly back to their small rental house for the night. It was a small, cozy cabin, and with the sound of waves gently lapping on the beach, it didn't take long for the couple to fall asleep. In the dead of the night, Mara got out of her bed and took out her revolver and a long rope from her bag. A storm had begun to brew outside, and the thunder grumbled in the distance. She placed the weapons next to her and waited for the opportune moment. A crackle of lightning struck and illuminated Mara's harshly lined face. A minute later, Mara heard the creak of the couple's door opening and the heavy footsteps of a man moving to the front door. Pappy was on his way to use the outhouse. Mara nimbly got out of bed, snuck out the room, and waited in the shadows of the outhouse. She prepared herself, and when the moment came, she moved swiftly. As Pappy moved back toward the shelter of the house, Mara struck. She whipped the rope over his head and jammed it into his mouth. He instantly resisted, but Mara had surprised him and grappled him and pulled him into the tree line. Pappy attempted to shout, but his screams were lost in the tempest of the roaring torrents of the ocean and the thunderous skies above. "I told you you didn't have long left, Solomon. Both of you are going to learn today," Mara whispered triumphantly into Pappy's ear as she led him into the dense, overgrown jungle. Back in the lonely cabin, Morag tried to reach out for what she called uppies. It was Morag and Pappy's special word that she used for anything from a hug to a hand up a ledge. However, when Morag reached out to cuddle her love beside her, she felt only the empty void where Pappy should have been. She rose out of bed and looked around the dark house and jumped at the furious sound of lightning. More and more she wanted uppies. It was on her return to her bedroom that she noticed something amiss. Mara's door was ajar too. Pushing the wooden door revealed another empty bed. She was alone. Her first thought was pirates maybe had taken them both in the night. Nervous and alone, Morag reached for the only thing that could bring her comfort and safety, her sword, Leah's Wrath. It was handmade by Pappy and named for her dear friend Leah, who taught Morag that she was never really alone. It was a poignant reminder as Morag faced the decision to leave the cabin in search of Pappy and Mara. Morag pushed through the trees and followed tracks left by Pappy's scrapping boots. Rain lashed down on her as she emerged from the trees to a horrific sight. There, on top of the edge of a waterfall, was not the pirate she expected. Instead, stood the all too familiar silhouette of a woman with Morag's witch-like nose, her hair wild in the wind, and an arm extended, holding a gun aimed right at the man she loved. Pappy was hogtied on the rock before her. "So, the princess finally woke up. Took you long enough, sister. Just in time for the storm," yelled Mara gleefully as lightning crackled in the ashen clouds behind her. The trees Morag stood by strained and swayed against the harsh winds. Morag's frantic eyes met Pappy's, and terror and realization washed over her of what she was seeing. "Mara, what are you doing?" Pappy was thrashing to move out of the ropes that bound him. Seeing him fight pushed Morag forward as she took steps closer. "You see, Morag, all my life I've been suffering. It's been a constant frustration, truly, sister." Mara's maniacal voice was more audible as Morag closed the gap between them. The sky seemingly grew darker, and the lightning flashes intensified. Mere seconds passed between the lightning rolling across the canopy above and the thunderous clap that drowned out all other sound. "I don't understand. You've had everything. What frustration? Please, sister, put down the gun," Morag pleaded. "You really are an idiot, aren't you, sister? You're the frustration. All my life I've lived in your shadow. I may have had every materialistic thing I wanted, but you stopped me from having what I truly wanted. It was always the same. Every birthday, every Christmas." I would see it in her eyes. Our mother couldn't look at me for a second without seeing you. It was always you. Venom dripped in Mara's tone as she spat the last U. She put on a high-pitched imitation as she said, "Oh, where is my little girl who is lost to the swamp? It was never about me. I tried so hard to get her to look at me. I tried everything, sister. I even robbed a bank. I almost blew up a whole city just for her. Not once did she care. She always looked through me like I was invisible to her. I was never enough. I never got a happy ending. But look at you. You got it all. A happy ever after. But here I am, living off what money I have left after I took her out." "Yes, that's right." She caught Morag's horrified expression as the loudest thunderclap yet clamored in their ears. Even with the roaring chaos around them, Morag caught every whispered word that came next. "That was the only time she ever really saw me, you know. Right before I pulled the trigger. And you know what? All I saw in her eyes was disgust. Even in the end, she couldn't just love me. You took it from me, my whole life. And now I'm going to take your happy ending too." Even through the rain drenched on her anguished face, Morag could see actual tears in Mara's eyes. Her body shook not only from the icy gusts, but the overwhelming emotions rushing through her body. Her gun arm fell slightly. "Please, Mara," Morag cried. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. This doesn't just have to be my happy ending, though. You can stay with us. We can be there for you. What Mother did is not my doing. Don't punish me for something I had no control over. Pappy is innocent in this. Please, sister." Her eyes darted to her beloved. She could read from his expression that he was encouraging her to keep going. But suddenly, Mara cocked her gun and brandished it over Pappy again. "You just don't get it. I'm tired of being a shadow. I'm ready to feel something again." Morag's eyes widened in panic as she moved closer, trying not to cry out. "Please, Mara, put the gun down. It doesn't have to be this way." "I can't let you have this, Morag. You need to learn what it's like to lose. Mara, I've lost so many things in my life, even students of my own academy. But I promise you it doesn't have to end like this for both of us. We don't have to fit in. We can fit together. We can figure this out." Morag was within arm's reach now. The jungle took this moment to pause, to take a breath. The world fell eerily silent. "I'm sorry," Mara whispered unapologetically, "but I can't let you have this." The world erupted at once, and despite her trembling hand, Mara's arm shot to Pappy's head. Determination shone in her dark eyes. Lightning struck the waters mere meters away from her as Morag whipped her sword out its sheath and launched herself at her sister. Mara ducked back, shocked by Morag's sudden move. Morag jumped between Mara and her beloved and blocked a direct line of sight from Mara to Pappy. If Mara wanted Pappy, she had to go through Morag. But it looked as if Mara wanted to do exactly that. With the edge of the waterfall behind her, Mara locked eyes with Morag. The wild gleam of malice of a woman who was out of options looked back at Morag. As Mara's gun arm whipped up to point at Morag, Morag lunged forward with her sword. Boom! Lightning struck and the pistol fired as Morag's sword plunged into Mara. Morag felt the burning white-hot pain above her left eye, and before she could register what was wrong, she reached up toward the pain and looked down in surprise at the blood covering her free hand. "I'm sorry," Mara gasped feebly. Morag looked up to take one last look into the desperate eyes of her sister as she let out what would be her last breath. Morag's grip of the sword loosened in shock, and Mara's body, still impaled with Leah's wrath, fell backwards over the precipice of the waterfall's edge and into the roiling waters below. drained out of Morag as the pain crescendoed inside her. She shook where she was standing, and in the agony of the last few moments, she too fell backwards onto the rock beside Pappy. Her eye gushed with blood, and with the last traces of energy she could muster, she reached out her hand to him. As the world began to spin, Morag whispered one last thing before she passed out. Through every storm. Pappy, frantic to help his wife, broke out of his ropes through sheer effort and determination. He cradled Morag in his arms, not caring about the blood he got on his clothes, and he dutifully carried her all the way to town. Pappy saved Morag's life, and she would go on to recover. She had lost her eye and also any connection to her family. But for once in her life, the thought of that didn't frighten or upset her. She had family after all, and Pappy, and her friends, and even Ethel.
Cosas que no vi, fue con el tiempo que entendí que simple es la felicidad, pero difícil ser feliz. Una sonrisa nada vale, ser amable, ¿cuánto cuesta? Saludar a alguien en la calle, perdonar algo que molesta. Yo era feliz y no sabía. Supongo que así es la vida. Nos centramos en el lugar cuando lo importante es y siempre será la compañía.